Now to the race to replace President Obama in the White House. And the spotlight has shifted some to potential vice presidential choices. Joining us this morning is political analyst Dallas Jones. Okay, now, thanks for being here first off.
Good morning.
The buzz is growing over Donald Trump and who should be on his ticket. Who do you believe he's looking for?
Well, I think his campaign has already engaged a firm to vet someone to serve as his vice president. And from what I've read, it's the same firm that John McCain used in 2008, and it's the firm that gave us Sarah Palin. And so I think it'll be a short list of very interesting choices. I think it could be a slew of folks. There are a number of names being mentioned. Ben Carson, for example, has been mentioned as a potential running mate. Chris Christie has been mentioned as a potential running mate, as both of them have been very cordial towards Donald Trump in the post-campaign era. And so it could be anyone in various gamuts. Is there anyone who may come from outside of that Republican leadership? Because you mentioned Carson and you mentioned Christie. You know, honestly, I wouldn't foresee someone coming outside of the well-known political establishment. I think now is the time, and probably part of that backroom meeting with Paul Ryan, the speaker, in really making sure that they can establish their Republican base. And so part of that would include trying to find someone who will complement what Donald Trump lacks in terms of foreign policy experience, legislative experience, and being able to move an agenda through the United States Congress. And so I think he'll really look towards someone that is more of an insider and has some of that experience. Okay, let's flip the script and go to the Democratic side. Who or what type of a person should Hillary Clinton be looking for if she ends up with the nomination? Well, I think that's a totally different scenario, right? I think Secretary Clinton has an extensive background, one in the Senate, two in foreign policy, having served as Secretary of State. And so she'll look for someone that can help with the electoral map, which you find on the Democratic side is certainly patterns of them pulling from the Senate. I wouldn't be surprised if the running mate came out of the Senate. One, because they move and take positions quickly on really hot topic issues, as opposed to someone that comes out of the executive branch, a governor, for instance, of a state. And so there is always the possibility that she could pull from a prominent business person, since you do have a business person leading the Republican ticket. But we'll see how that all pans out. Okay, polls are already showing that Trump as well as Clinton are kind of neck and neck right now. Mm-hmm. Is that what we should get used to as we move towards November? Absolutely. You'll see different polls commissioned by different people and different methodologies used to come up with an end result. And so I've never seen a presidential poll, and maybe I hadn't lived long enough, where, you know, one candidate is blowing the other out by 20 points, right? I think we'll see these polls, you know, moving closer and closer. In 2012, we saw very close polling numbers all the way down the line in terms of Mitt Romney and at that time, President Obama. The electoral map on election night showed something very, very different, which was that those polls were nowhere near as close as we may have thought they were. Well, we're just going to have to wait and see. Dallas Jones, thank you so very much for joining us here on Fox 26 Morning News. Absolutely. Thank you. Melissa.